Panthers missed their opportunity to close the series out against Toronto on Friday night, and it came with a pretty uninspiring performance on Friday. Now the series shifts back to Toronto for a winner-take-all Game 7.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Saturday, May 17th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at Monoman12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at @LO_FLA Panthers and on Blue Sky at LOFLA Panthers. You can follow the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Subscribe and press the like button down below. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. So, Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show to discuss everything in the world of the Florida Panthers, even in a 2-0 loss for them against the Toronto Maple Leafs in Game 6 of the second round, where now we have a Game 7 on Sunday night, 7:30 on TNT for the Panthers against the Leafs. And for just the takeaways for this is just a very uninspiring performance where the Panthers were slow out of the gate, getting only 2 shots on goal for the Panthers. And then, although they shifted the tides in the second period, they flipped the scoring chances. The Corsi for percentage for the Panthers in the second period, 86%. They still weren't able to capitalize. And for Florida, you get 2 early power play shot opportunities, and you only get 2 shots in the entire period, going the last 14 minutes without a shot on goal. And then the second one of the period was from distance, where Joseph Woll had a lot of time on Alexander Barkov and no screen in front. So, and the thing is, we saw in Game 5 a save from Sergei Bobrovsky on Matthew Knies. Sergei Bobrovsky had another highlight reel save early on for them. So the Leafs were just faster to puck retrievals, offensive zone, and they had the bodies out in front for them. So they also gained the offensive zone pretty well early on. And also for the Leafs and the Panthers here, missed opportunities over and over again in the second period when you did have your offensive zone time. Like I mentioned, there is a big difference between the first and the second period, which you had 2 long shifts from both the Nylander line and the Benoit pair, and the Panthers were just continuing to push and getting the opportunities on Wall, and they couldn't find a way to capitalize. And the 2 opportunities that the Leafs did have on the power play, Matthew Knies wasn't even on the power play unit for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They had Max Pacioretty there. Max Pacioretty being on the third line now, and then he finds a way to score off the rush. And a 0-0 game going into the third, and with how tight checking it was, lack of space, both teams were trying to rim it around the perimeter to see who was going to be first to the pucks, to see if there was going to be a chance inside. But I mean, the shot block disparity, 31-10 in favor of Toronto. It was reminiscent of games 1 and 2 for Toronto. So that's another issue, that the Panthers were having a hard time getting into the proper shooting lanes, and then you see Toronto just getting the shot blocks at ease. So, and there was opportunities where missed nets, where you see Carter Hagee with an opportunity, and then Chris Tanev closes in, gets the doesn't necessarily get the body, but you know that with how much the Maple Leafs are getting the bodies in front, there's a little bit of hesitancy there, and then you miss the net like Carter Hagee did in a big situation for them. So that's another thing for the Panthers that is just that we've seen, that it's reminiscent of games 1 and 2. Poor breakout pass leads to Austin Matthews' first goal of not only the series, but in 11 playoff games against the Panthers. And even I had not mentioned this yet, but after Game 5, the series was tied at 2. Paul Maurice was asked about containing Austin Matthews, and then Paul Maurice answered the question, do you know where the series is at? It's 2-2. So a little bit of humble pie even before the Panthers blew out the Leafs in Game 6. So that's another thing for the coaching staff. They're mature enough to know that, hey, the job's not done. You might have contained them then, but doesn't mean it's going to continue on throughout the rest. I mean, congratulations to him getting on that the goal, which was honestly a pretty poor goal to give up for the Panthers. Not connecting, forcing to Ekblad, and then Sergei Bobrovsky, a rare 5 goal given up on the 5-hole, and then the Panthers had their opportunity to still get some zone time, even had a power play, and then after that kill, the Panthers go up the ice, and then it's another transition opportunity. So odd man rushes, something we saw games 1 and 2 that resulted in the back of the net, and then when it came to the centering feeds for the Leafs, it was easy, where it was the defense was so spread out for the Panthers there that they were able to convert on their end. I mean, the 2 defense for the Panthers on the first goal, they're committed to the strong side on Sergei Bobrovsky's right. And then on the transition opportunity that Toronto had, it was a pinch, no forward back, and then transition 2-on-1. Max Pacioretty scores, and Max Pacioretty killed the Panthers in the first part of the series. The Panthers have been able to contain him, and then he bites the Panthers again. And to think that Craig Berube went to the lineup changes of putting David Camp into the game, Nick Robertson, and then he went back with the switches and taking him out, and then the Panthers, for the most part, gave themselves a great chance to win, even though they were not really pushing a lot of offense, and still ended up biting them in the butt for them. So that's another thing that is just so frustrating coming out of this game, because it's in front of your home crowd. You get the last change, you get to set your lineups, and you put that kind of dud out there for the Panthers. So that's another thing that's like, I'm at a loss for words, because this team has shown a great ability to close it out at times, but then you see that sometimes they'll need 1 or 2 more chances. It's not just the Edmonton series last year. We saw it multiple times against the Boston Bruins at home in last year, and even the Tampa Bay Lightning in round number 1 last year. So hopefully the Panthers find a way to adjust this, but it's just frustrating for them. With this kind of lackluster performance. But we're going to transition into segment number 2, where we're going to discuss our 3 duds of the game and the moment where we knew the game was lost. We're going to break all this down and more on today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. And there's nothing like playoff hockey. The energy, the rivalries, the nonstop action with the Stanley Cup playoffs heating up. There's never a better time to see it live. And Game Time makes getting into the building fast and affordable. Game Time gives you the last-minute tickets, zone deals for deep discounts, panoramic seat views, and all-in pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ticket prices often drop the closer you get to puck drop, so you can score big without overpaying. And you can save huge with zone deals. You pick the best seat at the lowest price, and you can see the exact seat views at checkout and it gives me total confidence. And the NFL schedule just released, so you could better believe that I'm ready to looking at my fall calendar and picking which games I like to go to. You'll find great seats for as low as $100, thanks to some exclusive discounts. And take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Segment number 2 here on this Saturday, May 17th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Saturday, as the Florida Panthers lose to the Toronto Maple Leafs by a final score of 2-0 at home in Game 6. And now we have a winner take all Game 7 on Sunday night. So 3 duds of the game, and we're going to discuss the moment where we knew the game was lost for the Panthers. And I have a few honorable mentions for the Panthers here. And I know that this line has had the matchups against the top line of the Toronto Maple Leafs having the last change, but honorable mentions I'm going to give to Anton Lundell and Brad Marchand. Lundell had no shots on goal, 33% in dot. And honestly, I've just accepted that the Panthers are not going to win the faceoff battle in the rest of the series, even in Game 7. But it really hurts the fact that Alexander Barkov is the only one who's over 50%. And it's the Panthers are having a hard time just sometimes getting organized after draws. And the Panthers have to just although they had to rely on their structure, which is still a great structure that they have, when losing that initial draw really hurts. And Lundell had no shots on goal for him. Brad Marchand, no hits and no blocks. That's odd for Brad Marchand coming into a game like this. Leaf killer and for a chance to close it out, it's a big goose egg for Brad Marchand. So number 3 dud for the Panthers is Sergei Bobrovsky, a really head-scratching 5-hole goal. He's usually never beat on that part of the body. So Austin Matthews' first goal in 11 playoff games against the Panthers, and it was a big backbreaker, as it was still a very tight game, 0-0 going into the third period, and the Panthers fall behind. I mean, there was that stat where the Panthers are 26-0 and leading after any period in under the Paul Maurice tenure, and then going tied. Part of me had a feeling that is like, oh man, if the Panthers don't find a way to get that first one, it's gonna be tough for them to try to get generate more offense. And it really was the whole theme the whole night. Although the second line, the Corsi disparity was great, but a lot, but just unable to get the pucks to the net, which 20 shot attempts, only 4 of them, 4 for that second line got on goal. Pushing and still getting in on their forecheck, but still issues, just making Joseph Woll's life harder. Number 2 for me, Gustav Forsling. Quite the pizza he had on that Austin Matthews goal. Although I do believe that Aaron Ekblad could have reached a little bit and connect that more on his tape, but not only the inability to connect, but just the fact that they weren't able to defend the quick rush that the Leafs had. And also credit to Mitch Marner for getting the back at the blue line, stay on side, and also feed it to Austin Matthews, where he just quickly went and didn't waste any time on that wrister. And also we even saw another game where the Toronto Maple Leafs shot themselves in the foot, where the Panthers had the Leafs had a power play, and then they shoot themselves in the foot with Austin Matthews getting the high stick on Aaron Ekblad when they were getting the puck deep into the zone. And to think that Austin Matthews, the Panthers did themselves get away with a high stick. So also, not only did the Panthers get away with a high stick, but the Leafs got away with the too many men on the ice. So it was kind of equal on who got away with what. The Panthers were called for too many men. The Toronto Maple Leafs early in the game were not called for a too many men on the ice penalty. So we can't necessarily blame the officials for any part of the game. So number 1 dud for me in this one, Nate Schmidt. Late in his shift. And earlier in that shift, Matthew Tkachuk was trying to gain the zone and turn the puck over, and still the Panthers were having a hard time getting it deep. Nate Schmidt was coming up the left wing, joining in on the play in the offense, and then forced the pass in the middle. And also, like I said, no communication back for someone to be on that second line back. Everyone was either right at the hashes or either spread out on the flanks. So that Gustav Forsling was just getting on the ice. I'm not going to blame that goal on him. But quick transition, and we've seen how much the Panthers have been burned. So that's another thing for the Panthers that just in this situation, that was the way I saw it. Was a guy is new, quote unquote. He's not new anymore, but still new as of this year, being on this team and trying a little bit too hard to try to create something that ends up biting you in the butt, going the other way. So number 1 dud is Nate Schmidt for the Panthers. in just giving up that second goal and basically ending it for the Panthers. But that is not my moment where I knew the game was lost for the Panthers here. The moment where I knew the game was lost in this 2-0 loss, the Panthers had a power play where Brandon Carlo hooked Alexander Barkov at 8:49. The Panthers not only get a shot, they don't even get a shot attempt. Very perimeter based, having a hard time in the zone, and there was one point where Ekblad was trying that drop pass, and then there's already Toronto Maple Leafs there to try to poke the puck out, and just the lack of space that they were getting in the Leafs zone. So that's another thing for the Panthers. That's just in this situation, you're trying too hard. You're trying to be too cute, and then it ends up biting you. So it's just when you see for the Panthers how the Toronto Maple Leafs were able to contain. I mentioned Anton Lundell and Brad Marchand as my honorable mentions. I thought Eetu Luostarinen played quite the great game for the Panthers. He was banging the body. Jesper Boak was decent in this one. He had 8 hits on the afternoon. So the up and down the lineup, even the fourth line for the Panthers, I thought that they were getting the pucks in deep and getting in on their forecheck. But you see different parts of the lineup that you're looking at, and you're just thinking, man, you just want these players to just find a way to get a puck through. And it's 6 games through, and Matthew Tkachuk still hasn't scored. Yeah, we talk about the injury that he suffered at the Four Nations, but it's still through it all. I mean, we talk about, the national media likes to talk about Austin Matthews' injury, that the fact that he went to Germany to get checked on, but still it's another 6 games through this one, and Matthew Tkachuk still doesn't have a goal in the series. So that's another thing that I'm just expecting Matthew Tkachuk to just, it's like, come on, the Panthers got to get something going here. So it's just I'm just continuing to just be in disbelief, because I would have been more content if it was like a 1-1 or 2-1 game type of deal. But the fact that the Panthers were having a hard time getting to the inside, it was just frustrating. That just overall the high danger chances, the Leafs dominating that one 13-6. The expected goals are actually not up for natural stat trick for some odd reason. But scoring chances for the Panthers 22-21. So the Panthers still gave themselves somewhat of a chance to win. And the thing is that this is, nothing else matters for the Panthers now that the series shifts to Toronto. And actually, that is where we are going to take this next, as now nothing from games 1 and 6 matter, as the Panthers now have to win another road game in Toronto. Game 7, Sunday night. We're going to discuss that and more next here on Locked On Florida Panthers Podcast. Third and final segment here on this Saturday, May 17th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers Podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers Podcast your first listen of the day. So before I continue on this segment, I do want to congratulate, Hunter St. Martin and the Medicine Hat Tigers for winning the championship in the WHL. So congratulations to him, Gavin McKenna. Caden Lindstrom actually came back from injury, Columbus Blue Jackets prospect. Who's missed the majority of the season, and now they are champions in the WHL. So Game 7, Sunday night, Panthers, Leafs, for a chance to face the Carolina Hurricanes in the Eastern Conference Final. A chance for a rematch. There's a rematch from the second round this year with the Toronto Maple Leafs. We're hoping for the Florida Panthers that they find a way for history to repeat itself. The Panthers clinched on the road in overtime in Game 5 2 years ago, and the Panthers are looking for an opportunity to do it again this time around. And listen, we've been spoiled as Panther fans these last 3 years of being towards the top of the division, even 4 years. A President's Trophy 3 years ago, winning a round every single time, so 4 consecutive second rounds. But don't you think that Bill Zito is going to be any type of content if the Panthers go out of this in Game 7, where they had their opportunities multiple times here. So Paul Maurice, which is great. He's a great quote when it comes to all this. He gave a lot of compliments to the Toronto Maple Leafs in after Game 6, talking about how it was tight. The analytics were actually a lot closer than the final result made it out to be. Talking about Game 5 in the Panthers victory, the 6-1 victory, kind of like, praising them, maybe getting their confidence up. And Brad Marchand even said the same thing after that game, trying to just give them a little bit of a boost so that they can feel themselves a little bit. But the Panthers were feeling themselves a little bit too much after that Game 5 victory. And hopefully the politics and the PR that Paul Maurice is trying to play here after the Game 6 loss, hopefully is beneficial for the Panthers, as now, like I said, the series shifts to Toronto, as now the media pressure cooker is certainly on for the Toronto Maple Leafs there. But like I said, Bill Zito's not going to be content, because usually you're more willing to run it back when you win a championship. But when if you go out the way the Panthers in Game 7, the mindset of Bill Zito is going to be, oh, teams are catching up to us. We're getting a little older. We have to readjust everything. And there's good and bad as far as the draft asset that you gave away for Brad Marchand, but that doesn't matter. We want to see this team win a Game 7. The conditions of that trade would upgrade to a first round pick if the Panthers win and Brad Marchand plays 50% of the games, which he's played every single game. So now that would upgrade to a first. If they don't, man, Bill Zito, I can only imagine the anger going into the offseason, and the fact that wouldn't be upgraded to a first round pick. You don't be surprised if he goes madman and tries to use that pick that he didn't give up, that first round pick in 2028, to try to bolster something and get a little younger. I do believe Brad Marchand is a rental no matter what happens, whether they go out in Game 7 or they win it all. So that's my opinion on that. So, but good news is, as we spoke after Game 6, if you remember, Game 5, if you remember, Alex Dono of the Florida Panthers Radio Network and our Locked On family discussed how it might have been better after the Toronto Maple Leafs lost Game 5 that they got away from Toronto, and the pressure was not as much on the Leafs. Yeah, there was pressure, but not as much playing on the road where they're away from all the media there. Now the series goes back. You hopefully give the fan base and even the team a little bit of hope, where the Panthers have shown over and over again that they could clinch the series on the road. So that's another thing that for the Panthers, there's more internal pressure for the Panthers to win than there is national pressure. So this could help the Panthers play freely. And if the Panthers are able to just clean up some of these passes that end up in transition opportunities, we're possibly looking at another 0-0 game midway through, or even 2/3 through, like we saw on Friday night for the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Panthers. So thankfully their game travels well. The forecheck for the Panthers put a lot of pressure, and the Leafs in Game 5 were unable to break out of the zone clearly. And hopefully for the Panthers, that's the thing for them in Game 7. And storylines. Will it be the Panthers flexing their championship muscle and it's the same old Leafs? Or will the Panthers find a way to crap the bed? So the script has been vastly different every single time. 5 tight games, only one of them being a blowout. Panthers shut out the Leafs once in this series. The Leafs shut out the Panthers. You get 2 games on the road in the first part of the series where odd man rushes were a big struggle for the Cats, but in one of the games, they were able to at least make it close and actually continue to press. So that's another thing. So we will see if the Panthers do end up showing up, and the Panthers are the adjustments that they make from game to game actually show in Game 7, and hopefully for the Panthers, it's resulting in a big road win, and hopefully it's a situation where the Panthers, just like when they went into Boston and won Game 7 in overtime, thanks to Carter Verhaeghe, they pack for multiple days. Not only that road game for Game 7, but Games 1 and 2 of the next series, as it'll be a quick turnaround. The Panthers, they did this to themselves. There's no way around it when it comes to how the Panthers performed. And even if they win on Sunday, you're having that quick turnaround. But hey, I'm not going to get that far. Actually, no, never mind. I'm not going to get that far. Win Game 7, and hopefully it's a situation where you're traveling for multiple days and you don't see your home for a week because you're on to the next city and into the next series, because Carolina is on their way home. So you're going to be coming back, going to another city from Toronto. Might as well make a stop in Raleigh, North Carolina for Games 1 and 2. So we will see how the Panthers fare. But that's going to do it for this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. We will be back with you guys on Sunday night / Monday morning to recap Game 7 of the second round series between the Florida Panthers and the Toronto Maple Leafs, where we are hoping that it is the Panthers advancing to the Eastern Conference Final for the third consecutive year. But in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.